In this episode, I'm going to show you what you should be charging for real estate photography based off of how the real estate market has changed here going into 2024. Also what that means for realtors, what that means for home buyers, and how that then translates into what you should be charging, what most people are charging out there, what some of the averages are, and also some common misconceptions when it comes to setting your prices for real estate photography. So let's get started and let's first take a look at the market in general. Taking a look at the overall demographic and what it really adds up to here in 2024 when we take a look at the median home price, which is in blue, and then if we take a look at then what is the required income calculated by Realtor.com to be able to afford a house in these regions, and then also what the median income is for a household. These three factors you'll see are going to translate into what realtors are doing, how that's affecting their market, and then also what they can pay us as real estate photographers, and then what we should be charging. So this is where we're going to start. So here we can see that the median home price is excessively high in some areas where the required income is pretty low in some areas, but definitely higher than the median income. Let's zoom in on that really quick, and that's where we get buyer affordability. So this is that required income that we saw from the last graph. So we can see that in Los Angeles, it's close to about $300,000 as a household income is going to be required to afford a new house at a median cost of a new house. We can see that that's very much higher than the median income of a household in Los Angeles. Now, what this means is that a lot of households will combine to be able to afford a house, or they'll rent or something else. We can see though that varies by region. It's not all the same, but in all cases here in 2024, no matter where we are, no matter what region, we can see that the required income to buy a house is higher than the median income in that area. So if we zoom in on that, then we can take a closer look. This is the median household income here in 2024. It's what I'm considering to be the survivability threshold. In other words, you would have to make this as a household income in these areas just to survive. Now, of course, these are done off statistics, and it can also be that there are combined households living in one residence. But you can see that they do vary by region, and it does make a lot of sense in some cases that San Francisco has always been very high to be able to afford to live in that area. And of course, some other areas like Cleveland, Ohio would be very low. But this then sets the stage for when we start looking at real estate commissions. If we take a look in 2024 at the median real estate commission, and that would be based off of just 3%, meaning that they either split down to between two realtors, the common 6% in the United States to 3%, or with the recent lawsuits, they decided to just split it down to 3% as they went into the sale. Very common nowadays. Another episode I had on that, I'll have a link to that down in the description if you're interested in that. But if we take a look at this 3% median income, that's based off of when we take a look at the median home price. So obviously here in Los Angeles, where the median home price is almost $1.2 million just for the median home price, we can see then that a realtor in Los Angeles would make at just the median commission almost $36,000 on a sale of a house. Now, this varies much by region, and this will then affect the marketing budget of your clients and what they would be willing to pay for. But when this comes down to how many sales they actually need throughout the year, that's when we can see here that in these areas, based off of the median income for an area, that survivability index, compared to the commission that they would be getting in Los Angeles, a realtor only needs to sell 2 homes. If that realtor can sell 2 homes in a year, then they can survive because the median income for that area is low. Now, taking a look at something at the high end here, over in San Francisco, where it's almost about a little under $140,000 a year as a survivability threshold, then we can see that the survivability here to make that income would be just 4 home sales a year. Now, obviously they do a lot more typically. A lot of the big listers do up to 12, sometimes 20 a year, even in a down market, 8 to 10. So we know that there's a lot more marketing budget for these realtors in these high priced areas. But when we look at some of the other areas just to hit the survivability threshold, like over in Pittsburgh and also other areas of Pennsylvania, a realtor's got to sell about 7 homes a year. And when we take a look at their median commission from that, we can see that it's very low, so their marketing budget is going to be affected. Thus, the amount of sales that they have per year, based off of the commissions that they get, that's going to dictate the budget, and that's where now we can start taking a look at what we should be charging as real estate photographers and what actually is becoming the average. And this is where it gets tricky. Before I get to those other 2 graphs, I just want to preface this real quickly with understanding that it's going to depend on your years of experience and also the quality of photos that you do provide. I'm also going to show, after we get through these next 2 graphs on those pricing levels that you should be charging and the average throughout your various geographic regions, also what that means when we're competing against the photo mills. I'll get to that last. But based off of the quality and years of experience, if you feel that you are not yet up to speed, you could use some improvement, or you're just starting to get into real estate photography, or things aren't quite going your way, then that's something I can help you with, and I would invite you to take a look at my online courses for real estate photography. As you may know, I have online courses that cover professional interior real estate photography, expert editing for interior photography, professional exterior photography, and videography for real estate as well. I also have written best-selling books on real estate photography, and I have links to all that down in the description for this video. But now let's take a look at those prices that you should be charging based off of everything that we've talked about so far. Based off of the median household income, if you're a photographer living in any of these areas, this would be then your survivability threshold for a household income. So when we take a look then at the pricing, this right here shows that this would be required as the median real estate photography charge for 200 shoots per year. Now what this means is that if I were to take that median income and divide it by 200 shoots a year, which would be 10 months, that'd be about 20 shoots a month or 5 a week. And let's say that you did this, it would be about, let's say maybe 2 hours for a shoot, 2 hours for edit. You'd only be working 4 hours a day. So based off of that, which is a fairly light workload for doing real estate photography, we can see that in Los Angeles, based off the median income, that just doing those 200 shoots a year for everyone, now this would be the median, this would include your low and your high price tiers, then the median would be about $380. Up in San Francisco, that's almost $700. And you can see that at the lower end, like in Cleveland, Ohio, it's probably right under $170 for that. But once again, this is to reach that survivability threshold. So this isn't reality, this is kind of a goal, just to say that if I'm gonna do real estate photography and I'm gonna work just 20 hours a week between my shooting and my editing to do this, then this is what I would need. And this is a realistic expectation if you're starting out, where you're not going to be filled up on your schedule. So thinking about this as doing it part-time or whatnot, 20 hours per week. So now let's take a look at the actual pricing. So this is an interesting group of statistics because this is taken from a few different sources. In particular, the average one that we have here, which is shown in blue, and also the 2-hour shoots, which is shown in yellow gold. That was from May 2024 RubyHome.com, and I have a link to their blog post about this down in the description as well. In the middle here in red is the required per median income. And that's what I showed here, which if we were to take this median income and do 200 shoots then per year, this is what we would need. So I have that in red in this chart here. So here's something that's very telling. What we want to see, ideally, is we want that middle bar, that red bar, we want to see that lower than other bars, because this says in the red bar, this is what we need if we're going to be working, for instance, part-time or 20 hours per week, that this is what we need to be making. So yes, you would be making more if you were doing more than just 200 shoots per year, and also there's add-ons and things like that. But you can see here that in the Los Angeles area, it's about $380 for the median, and the average, of course, this is according to RubyHome.com, is about $320, but the 2-hour charge for a shoot would be right over $600. And that falls in line, if we go back over here, don't forget, I'm talking about a 2-hour shoot here, about 2 hours of shooting, 2 hours of editing. So if that were to be the case, and we only need 380, we can be charging a lot more, a little over $600. If we take a look at some other areas, we can see where it's really not working out as well. For instance, in the Seattle area, where you would need about almost $600, but the 2-hour charge is a little over $500. So on average, this is where we can see where we fall, where most of the time, what we need and what the minimum charges are coming out to be for these 15 and 20 photo shoots, we should be charging actually a lot more. And that also is evident when we take a look at just the national average. Of course, this is from RubyHome.com, where the national average for just 15 to 20 photos is $230. And for a 2-hour shoot, then that comes out to $400. So you should be charging in your area something along the lines between the blue and the gold bars. But this is where it gets tricky, because now we have to talk about competing against the photo mills. A big mistake that I see a lot of real estate photographers make is that when they try to do their competition research to figure out their pricing and how it stacks up to others in the area, they're getting their pricing from what I call the photo mills. And these are those run and gun agencies. They send hired photographers out that make next to nothing just to do quick HDR. And those will always be very, very low priced. And that's because they have a high churn rate. What they're doing is they're going after about the 80% of realtors. And as you may know from other videos I've talked about, only about 80% of realtors will make it to even 2 years. They usually drop out. So only about 20% of realtors will make it past 2 years. So that 80% is they try it, they're not doing very well, and they tend to drop out. There's a long story off topic for another time with this, but if we take a look at what they're doing in their low prices, we can see why you shouldn't be charging that much. For instance, VHT Studios is a real big nationwide brand that does this. And if you try to get prices off their website, you'll see that it does vary quite a bit. But the telling part to all this is when you take a look at their reviews. If you were to take a look on Yelp, you'll see that their reviews are very low. As you go through those, you'll see a lot of 1-star reviews, people very, very unhappy with it. So no matter what somebody like VHT or some of these photo mills will say about their reviews and posting their reviews on their website, that's just not reality. So what will happen is you'll be getting a request for a quote from somebody, and they'll say, oh my gosh, you're so much higher than VHT or somebody else, some other photo mill. And let them go ahead and use them, because what will happen is they'll see eventually that there's a difference. They're not going to get the quality, the customer support, possibly even the turnaround or flexibility that you can provide. And that's a big difference. I've said it once and I'll say it many, many more times again, is that if you want to compete in real estate photography, you do not compete on price, you compete on quality. And that means that you got to get good and you got to get very, very good. But once you do, charge more than these photo mills. You should, you deserve it, and there are people out there that will actually pay for that and a lot more when you expand real estate photography just out of the listing market into other architectural and design areas as well. So if you're charging low and you're competing with those photo mills, you need to jack your price up. You need to raise it actually quite a bit. Anyways, I hope this was useful for you, and as the real estate market keeps on changing, I will keep an eye on it and I'll keep you posted.